Welcome to another episode of the Straight Up Chicago Investor Podcast. I'm Tom Shellcross. With me, as always, is Mark Ainley. Mark, how we doing?
I love. For the listeners out there, we try to do a second cut because Tom messed up there, and he never does. And I say this because so many people just assume that that's a recording from that we just inserted and we start talking, but it's different. It's you doing it naturally every time. I love it.
It's natural just to scream welcome as loud as you want. If you're listening to your car, just pause this and scream welcome. See how natural that is.
It's so funny. So, hey man, this inventory thing, house hacking, house hackers, people looking for house hacks. Like, are you seeing any end to this insight of like inventory and or demand or the supply? Like, tell me what your thoughts are.
I think inventory is going to continue to be tight, right? Like it is what it is. And for everyone saying like, I'm going to wait for rates to drop, like demand's just going to go up. Like that's a sliding scale. Like you're going to have to find ways to do deals today. You're going to have to find ways to do deals tomorrow. Like there's always going to be some issue, not issue, but there's all the market's never going to be this perfect thing for you. Like when it gets easier, demand goes up, right? And when it gets harder, demand might go down, but the supply is so low. Like you're always going to have these struggles. So I think we got very spoiled the last few years, and it's your job to create deals. It's your job to surround yourself with people who are doing deals, right? And maybe you're doing less velocity today, but that doesn't mean throw your hands up in the air. I don't know. It's a cop out. I feel like there's still ways to go about it, and I do think underwriting might have to change a little bit. Like there's other parts of the country that accept lower cap rates. Maybe that makes sense. Maybe that doesn't. But I do think at some point we will maybe see a shift there. This is more on the multifamily side of, okay, like we're eking out a return here, but it's still better than other things. So I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball.
I think you need to measure all the other opportunities that come with owning a piece of real estate, whether it be a 2-flat, 4-flat, and the advantages you're getting may not be as much or as attractive when you sketch it out, but there's other advantages you're getting that you need to make sure you're looking at those things and taking advantage of maybe something that might not look as attractive right now, but ultimately you're winning versus waiting for that to come along. Because here's the thing,
Well, here's the thing. What does that deal look like 5 years from now?
Yes.
Right. Everyone looks at it right now. Year one, my cash on cash sucks, and it's like that doesn't mean look at it in year 5, and what does that look like compared to where else you can park your money? And maybe it makes sense, maybe it doesn't, but I think that's the right mindset at least, right? Like we have such a short scale for this thing we're going to own for decades, and that pisses me off.
In 2017, 18, you know how many people were saying I'm going to wait on the sidelines with cash waiting for the market to crash? And those deals that they passed on that now, between it getting tighter and all the rents going up, like those would be killer deals now 5-6 years later.
Yeah, and I forgot who I was talking to, but it was someone, and they're like, one day I'm going to be bored. I'm going to go back to the BP forums to everyone who said, like, I'm waiting out in 18, and then just reply, like, today. Like, how'd that work for you?
Yeah, people, especially out there, people chase the 2% deal, like, all the way up until, like, 2015 before they realize, like, we got to lower this rule of thumb.
Yeah. So, speaking of house hack, today's guest, this is awesome. We had a good one today.
Yeah, she broke down a lot of what, we talked about some of the myths. We talked about some of the different, like you're just talking about some of the different strategies to approaching a house hack. So I thought we got a really good tangible information for our listeners there today.
Yeah, I'm always appreciative too of someone who is of the same mindset of putting deals like this together, and also a lot of people, and like we had Vicky on here before, Victoria. People come from out of state and come to Chicago and say, "Holy crap, this is awesome! You have all these 2 to 4 units." Like we take that for granted.
We take it for granted, and both Victoria and our guest today, the word scrappy came up, and when you think about their mindset and how they go about things and how they're trying to make things happen, like it's just that mentality that makes them so successful.
Yeah. All right. So before we get to the introduction, though, what's our housing provider tip of the week?
You know what? We're still in this blazing heat, and it's funny that in the winter you're worried about pipes bursting, leaks, and so forth. But we actually ran into an issue at GC Realty this week where we had a couple HVAC lines. Vacant houses. We thought that we're good. The AC's on. We're showing it. Started to show it, and the leasing agent shows up, and there's leaks at both these properties because the HVAC, the air conditioning is working too hard. The coil freezes up, and it freezes all the way back up to the condenser, and now you have a line of leaks all the way through the drywall in the basement. So Even though your house is empty and you're not worried about frozen pipes, still make sure you're keeping an eye on these things. Now, I think for this particular property, both these properties we took out recently, and both of them have not had their air conditioning serviced here in a while, which both of those things would have realized that the freon was low and they had to do something about it. So a couple of different tips here with make sure you're maybe servicing your AC in the springtime, and then don't take for granted that a vacant property in the summer can't still have issues with leaks in water.
Yeah, no, great tip. With the servicing, the three I look at is, plumbing, get it rotted, get the main rotted once a year, get a check on the HVAC at least once a year, and then we do a roof check too. We pay a couple $100, just get up there, patch what you need, like just all the preemptive stuff, because that's the stuff that if you don't take care of will bury you X amount of years down the line.
I agree.
So, all right. Today's guest, we have a certified opera singer, and it's not John Warren. Bet you didn't see that coming. We have a stand-up comedian. We have someone who investor herself, specializes in helping people house hack on the north and northwest side of Chicago. Just a killer guest today. We thank Mike Ficini for the introduction. So without further ado, Sarita Scherpereel, welcome to the show. Sarita, welcome to the show. How are we doing today?
Oh, we're doing great. I'm so excited to be here. This is such a huge honor and such a career high for me. Thank you guys so much for having me.
Your career has been higher than this. So let's start with your career, though. Before getting into real estate, fun fact that you told me, you used to do improv.
Yeah, improv and stand-up. I worked at Second City for about 8 years, and then I did stand-up for a bit after that. And before that, I had another life as an opera singer. So a lot of stage work before, I guess, real estate, which is also still another stage in a lot of ways, as we're seeing today.
Well, that's awesome. Like, let's talk
John
about
Warren's
that.
an opera singer too, right?
John Warren is an opera singer. I'm taking full credit. We were at dinner. I was the one who said they should rename it to Forte, which is now Forte Properties. And I have not received a single royalty check out of that. So throw it out there now for all the attorneys that listen. Like, let's go after John Warren. So, all right. So Sarita, I get so many questions about all of this, but like, let's start with, how did you come across real estate, right? Was it just, I'll go do this, I'll get my license? Like,
I don't know. I mean, honestly, I think it was by divine intervention for years before I even approached the topic of getting my real estate license. When I was in college and I had just kind of what I would consider a boring desk job, I worked at a roofing company. One of the guys I dated in college, his dad was a flipper. So it was always sort of for a really long time a part of the vernacular. Even though I didn't grow up in a real estate family where we talked about investing, it had slowly sort of been integrating itself into my life in these tiny little ways, which at the time, that roofing job, which I thought was just complete, just a desk job and a waste of time, ended up being a huge asset and such a help for my job and what I do, especially with the investment properties and how to analyze these things. And at the time, I never, ever would have thought in a million years that it would have, made sense for my, future career. But little moments like that. And then, we were talking a little bit about opera and stand-up and improv. The big catalyst, I think, that had me kind of pivot my life completely was I had a job at the University of Chicago's Booth School of Business in the executive education program. And such a huge blessing to be in that job because, again, I just sort of landed in it. I wanted insurance. I needed a full-time job outside of performing. So, and I mean, really, those were my goals. I wanted insurance and just some study money coming in. But the university and Booth has this really wonderful program where you get to take free MBA classes, a part of your professional development there as an employee. And I mean, I'll be honest with you, opera singer Sarita never would have been able to get into one of the best business schools in the country. I had, AP'd out of math and anything in high school. So it had been a long time before, I would have been able to take, any type of graduate class or programming. But I got in sort of through the back door, and then I started taking these classes, which were kind of eye-opening. Specifically, I got to take a negotiation class, and that completely changed my life. One of the people in the class we had to do these mock negotiations where you play roles of what you're going to negotiate. And one of the guys I was with was you're going to be really good at this because negotiation is a lot of acting. And like immediately it was an aha moment for me where I was like, oh yeah, you're right. You can kind of play a part. You get your, what your wants are, and then kind of, like go towards those goals. And then I just started, working on my real estate license. And then I left that job and became a full-time agent pretty shortly after that.
Well, that's awesome. So let's talk about opera singer Sarita, because I like the sound of that. Growing up, did you know like, hey, I'm gonna be on stage, right? Whether it be comedy, whether it be performing, like were you the ham in the talent show? Were you there saying like, was that always the personality or no?
Yeah, it was. I mean, I think I've always had a very outgoing personality. So the people skills that you need in real estate, I think it really, was very important for. But yeah, even at a young age, I think I'd always been either, kind of a class clown or, the loudest person in the room. Sometimes like when we're walking away from properties, when we're trying to like have some private conversations, I have to tell people like I have a voice that wakes the dead. So like, let's take this a few houses away so that we can kind of talk about things. But yeah, it's always been that way since I was very, very young.
Some of the world's biggest fears are public speaking or going up on stage, and your ability to be comfortable with that had to be a huge, and jumping into all the other things we're going to talk about today, just because it's just a tolerance risk, or just being uncomfortable. So that had to be a huge for anything you're doing the rest of your life. That had to be a great segue into it.
Yeah, it was definitely a blessing. It's a skill set that I think that either people have or they don't have. And you can kind of work on it a little bit to become more comfortable with it. But, for especially going into houses with tenants and being able to talk to people with ease and, even in the most awkward situations, I can pretty much talk about anything. And whether that's from just the natural ability of doing it or my background in improv, like there is a certain skill set that does take that I'm really lucky to have, especially in this industry.
Yeah, so it's definitely an important attribute, but there's a lot of people who have that same personality or have the same, the same charisma, whatever you want to call it, and they're waiting tables, right? No offense, but like it doesn't mean you're going to be successful in real estate. You can be very good with people. That doesn't mean you're going to be successful in this industry. So talk to us a little about getting started, right? Like you have this personality that you think can be beneficial to the industry, but like talk us through that first year, like, roughly how many deals did you do? What are some learning lessons like? Because it's a struggle. It's going to slap you in the face a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. So, I'm a huge fan, and I will probably say divine intervention many times in this, because I feel like sometimes life just kind of pushes you in directions that, you are not necessarily even like kind of aware that you're headed towards. And when I was at Booth, the big thing that I had experienced was I was on a professional board for a children's charity, and I was surrounded by a lot of people who were in their careers doing really wonderful and great things. So I had kind of a sphere of influence outside of my improv friends of people who were making money and wanting to invest. And through those relationships, I met somebody who was looking to house hack. And through that relationship with my friend, and then ended up being my client, I discovered house hacking. And that first year, I was kind of working with him, but it was real light. They were also just trying to understand this as well and wanted, and I mean, I will say this a lot, like I was a horrible agent the first year I did this. I think there's so many people and all the books they preach about how you got to market, get yourself out there. I think that's BS. I think that the hardest thing for people to do is the slow and steady pace that you have to have of like learning a skill set. And I was really lucky that I felt like I was kind of an underdog in all of this, and that I didn't just kind of jump into it. I joined a really good team. They worked with me. They showed me how to not only like look at deals, but how to analyze properties, understand like kind of what it takes to be a landlord. Like the whole picture was really broken down in that time, that if I was just an agent out there swimming alone, I never would have had that skill set, not only to be comfortable enough to do my own thing, but also to like have clients or repeat business. Because that I think is the big difference between like a condo agent and somebody that just does single family homes and the multi-unit investing friendly agent, is that you have to be able to make your clients successful. Because if you're not, they're never going to work with you again.
Yeah. So that all makes sense. Why jump on with this house hacking though, right? Like this is like your niche, your bread and butter right now.
Yeah.
You know, that's a stretch from where you were from one. So talk us through that journey a little.
Yeah. So because I didn't come from a real estate family and I'm originally from Houston, we don't have the type of multi-unit inventory down there that we, do up here. So real estate investing in Houston is it's a different model. I mean, it's really bigger pockets kind of ideal model because the whole city was built after the air conditioning. Everything is pretty much cookie cutter, exactly the same. It's really easy to analyze those things. Here we have these 100-year-old buildings. So for me, when I discovered house hacking and I discovered really I don't want to say like entry level investing, but in some ways that's what it is, right? So you do have 30-unit buildings, but you also have things that are, easy to manage, whether it's buying another single family home and renting it out or a condo and renting it out. I just wasn't privy to that. And then once I discovered that and I started working with this client, joining this team, to me, it was a no-brainer. I saw that first 6 months, really, I was on the job. I saw people create sustainable wealth, like life-changing wealth that you don't see on the stock market and you don't see from, just either, working extra hours or getting your bonus at work. These were trajectory changes of people's financial wealth that was so impressive to me. So I guess I just drank the Kool-Aid really hard and started doing a lot of research and learning as much as I could about it, whether it's from, the bigger pockets and then eventually, wonderful podcasts like yours. But those first 2 years, I was just soaking it up in every direction I could because it was really not only life-changing, but it was just pivotal to what I thought I could do, especially some of my clients looking at the journey they had taken where they started out with less than I had, and worked hard and got to where they were. I was like, if some of these people can do it, this is something that really needs to be shouted from the rooftops.
I have a presentation I do, and in it has a slide about Houston versus Chicago and the age of properties. And in Houston, it's like 80% of their housing stock was built after 1960. And for Chicago, it's 60% of the housing stock was built before 1920.
Right.
So as far as age goes, so that it's similar with Memphis. So we're very old when it comes to that. And I think in the presentation it talks about lead pipes, and that's where I go with that. But yeah, I just want to add that fun fact in there. But as far as getting going as an agent, I mean, you did this, your investment path or the agent side of things, you're doing all this research. What steps are you doing to make money or generate business, or what are I mean, that's a challenge. You have to have a network, create a network. Tell us more about those early thoughts in your mind and how you went about it.
Well, I think joining a team is really helpful. And then also, because you're given, kind of clients that you can work with, and then you also have a lot of support that you can rely on. So I don't understand why there's, I feel like the Chicago Association of Realtors should kind of make that a mandate. Instead of all this continuing education that we take, they should say, hey, you need to join a team for at least 1 year before you're a solo agent. Because, you hear so many times from people where they're like, oh, I worked with an agent, but they weren't really a realtor. And you're like, wait, what? Or they just never got their career started. And I think that would help with the skills gap, sorry, not question, but my opinion.
Well, here before the crash in 2008, you could literally get your license and start your own company. So not even on your team. So that changed. So I'll finish myself there, but you could, I literally got my license and opened the company. So, yeah, no, it's crazy how long it's changed. And I definitely think there should be some sort of, you got to be part of so many transactions. They don't track any of that stuff as far as that goes. I think that'd be a huge improvement for the industry.
I agree. We should write a letter. You and I, Mark, let's get on this.
Well, yeah, no, we want to get
an angry letter.
The head of on here is someone that's on my list. So maybe she's listening out there. She's a fun person.
Yeah, so I think that, for me, joining a team, I think it's a humbling experience too. You have to humble yourself in this and say, hey, there's a lot I don't know. I don't know a lot about properties. I, had never even purchased before. So before I became an agent, I had never even owned my own condo or, single family home or anything like that. I was a poor, starving artist. And I think that also helped with the hustle and things. So, not only because, I'm able to talk to people, but like really get out there and kind of hit the ground running and grind my way into my own career and my own business. Whether it is, again, that sorry, I'm going to have a stroke right now. I'm having a stroke right now. The submersing yourself into the material and educating yourself on all of this. Like, I think there's that, but you also have to have a lot of hustle in order to grow your business. But ultimately, if you don't know what you're doing, it shows. So if you don't understand how to lead the deal, how to be a closer, how to actually put deals together, you're not going to have clients come back to you, or they might fire you. So that was really important. And then once I had, got the reputation of being somebody who was really knowledgeable and honest and trustworthy with, not only the deal itself, but like honoring other people's money and intention, then I just sort of started, again, by the grace of God, having a lot of blessings come my way where I had, really wonderful clients and people who are using me, and also the repeat business, because that's the best thing about these investor clients is they don't usually just buy one and then you see them every 7 years. They want to buy one a year at least. That's most people's goal in investing. So,
or you could educate them on buying one a year as well too, and create your own pipeline.
Yeah, how to do it. And so then you try to look for those relationships and those people that one, they're worth the time. So they not only are listening to and trusting what you say, but they're also doing their own research and work too. There's nothing more difficult than when somebody comes to you and they're only relying on you as their, source of information for everything. And they're not taking the initiative to listen to podcasts, to do all of these other things that they need to be doing to help with, the education of this. So looking for people who are, on many levels, developing that skill set to be a landlord, and then helping them with a partnership that really shows them how to do this and how to turn and burn, and then how to kind of grow their portfolio.
The one thing I did, the first 2 deals I did, and this is, I always tell other people, I did it as a real estate agent, was I bought my own stuff. My first 2 ones, you went through the transaction, you went through negotiation, you went through all the paperwork, all that paperwork, disclosures, all that stuff is horrible. Now, not everyone can do that, but what you can do, though, is go through the motions. You can go find a deal as it's for a client. You could go put an offer in up after, you lowball it, and worst case scenario, you get it, and you figure out a plan at that point. But you go through all the motions of negotiating, submitting an offer, having to figure out highest and best as a good learning curve to, especially right now, if you're going to go up against multiple offers, that's another thing. So that's something I would suggest to people, either try buying your own place as your first couple transactions, or just take it to the finish line and maybe even find a deal for another client that you can actually get a good deal for.
Yeah, good point. Absolutely.
Yep. So we mentioned some of the hustle and hey, we got to go out there, got to go grind. For someone who's listening right now, looking to get started, what are some of those activities? They might have that mindset, but they still just don't know what to do. So that person looking to start, they just got their license, it's year 1. What are some of those activities that you can recommend for them to, hey, if I'm in your shoes, this is what I'd be doing?
So I'd say, I'd kind of repurpose the question. I'd say it's year 2. So they've already done year 1 with the team, so they know what they're doing and they know how to kind of talk the talk and walk the walk. And then to actually gain clients, I think, commenting and doing things on Bigger Pockets, showing up to meetups is really wonderful. Going to open houses, hosting an open house. So even if you don't have a listing, and you see that maybe there's a stale multi-unit on the market that has a vacant unit, hit up the listing agent. I think that there's a lot that you can be doing outside of just kind of waiting for the phone to call. And especially right now with blogs like Bigger Pockets being so big and such a great resource for information, get on there, put your 2 cents up, and start following up with people. I think that's things you can literally do in your couch, in your underwear, that is a great way of hustling, Sorry to paint a little trippy picture, but that's the reality. You don't have to go far and you don't have to do much to hustle out there in this.
I told Lance, Lance is working with us on the podcast, and I told him he's about to get his license, and I told him, I said, just go interview a bunch of real estate agents under 25 that have a huge social media following and just figure out what they're doing. And then you post it on your own and you create your own content. There's so much you can do without actually even doing real estate to get submerged, if I said that right, into the industry. I always mess it up too.
No, I think I think I'm really excited right now, and so I think I'm very passionate about what I say, and so some of these words are coming out as a little bit of like a stroke. So my apologies. Yeah, but I think social media is also a really great thing too, but you have to have an opinion on stuff. So like if you have all this like curated content, or if you're just on Bigger Pockets, just either what we would call an improv where you like yes and you're just agreeing with everybody, like nobody needs somebody that's agreeing with everybody. What you need is you need to have a strong opinion out there based on either what you've experienced or, what you know things to be, and take that passion and really put it out there. And, whether that's on Bigger Pockets or social media, I think it really pays off. Once I stopped doing like curated Instagram content, last year we gained almost 2,000 followers, when I really just kind of let my freak flag fly and cost a lot more, and did a lot of like makeup free videos where everything wasn't perfect. Like show your personality, show your opinions, and your people will find you.
Yep. The Bigger Pockets comment, that one gets me, because so many times you go on there and someone says like, hey, I'm looking to do this in some neighborhood, and you're like, oh, let me come up with the next educated answer, and there's 14 people on there who have said, good luck, follow your dreams. That's great. If you're looking for an agent, reach out. Like, it's just crap until you get to something of substance.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's adding value in any of those. Like, usually we actually have Bigger Pockets and there's 18 people. Like, I don't even bother. Like, I could just go to the next one. If you're not there up there at the top, it's never worth it.
Yeah.
Public service announcement, add value. Like, don't say something just to say something. Like, no one cares. You're not doing yourself a favor. You're not looking any smarter. No, like, you have to show like, oh, this person can actually maybe help me.
Yeah. And I think that the last couple of clients that I've actually gotten from Bigger Pockets are when I said something that was contradictory to what the mainstream was saying on there. So I think that, and that's hard too. It's hard to be an outlier, especially I think as a woman that's on a predominantly male, blog. But I think that having a difference of opinion, but also proving your opinion is really important, because sometimes you can kind of say some things, and then if you don't back it up with facts, like you're just going to also look like you're trying to be like ornery or something. So having, some data or having some, ideas to center around that is really important.
All right. So you help a lot of house hackers. You play in my neck of the woods, the north and northwest side. When we spoke off camera, we talked about debunking the myths of house hacking. Let's dive in there. What are some of those myths of house hacking? And let's debunk them.
Oh gosh. Well, right now, I think the biggest thing is, everybody's like, oh, we can't find a deal. And this isn't cash flowing. Or you look at their numbers and you're like, oh my goodness, like, their vacancy rates are too high, or their CapEx, is too high. Their estimates are kind of off. And a lot of that is that, they are either educating themselves based on kind of these market statistics from across the nation, and not centered on Chicago's specific markets or the specific neighborhoods in Chicago. So we spend a lot of time with house hackers having to debunk that, really doing what I call show and not tell, like getting them out there, showing them properties so that they can understand their numbers in a 3D way. So it's much more conceptual and it's not just on a piece of paper. And that also helps promote like the strategy of what you see in the property, because a lot of times, especially, sorry, I bring up Bigger Pockets so much, but the reality is we're getting a lot of people. But so many times on Bigger Pockets, you can have somebody from Hawaii or California that's commenting on things in Chicago. And it's like, no, a lot of these properties are rented below market value. Obviously, listing prices are just suggestive, and a negotiation, can take place. So you have to like walk the buyers through all the scenarios that are there, so that then they kind of understand the big picture of what they're doing. And I'll be honest with you, it's a lot of effort, seeing properties versus just like running the numbers, which is what I used to do. I used to do that a lot and then weed things out, but then I was catfished a lot. So we were missing opportunities of things that had good strategy and good potential, because we're just analyzing it on one level and, just basically judging a book by its cover before we actually went out and saw these things.
Yeah, I can speak from firsthand experience as someone who has multifamilies and has, 2 to 4 units in their portfolio. The 2 to 4 units, it's easier. especially if you're living there. Like it really, I don't know how to actually quantify this, but like you don't sit there and go to some guru's class and be like, all right, we do this much vacancy, we do this much management. Like it doesn't work that way. Like it's a different client. It's a different setup. They're not the same.
No. Yeah. Like for my house hack where I'm living right now, I have a 3-unit in West Town. I literally have every strategy in my property. Not only am I house hacking, I have in the middle unit, I have tenants that are, regular tenants and on like a lease. And then my lower level is on Airbnb and on Furnish Finder. So we have midterm rentals on my first level, which I love. But sorry, go ahead.
So we got house hacking, we have midterm, short term, and we have long term, all in 3 unit here.
Yeah, all 3. And I think it was really important for me. One, I really wanted to do like the Airbnb strategy. I thought that was going to be really good for me, especially since I work from home a lot. I thought the managing of it would be kind of easy to do on my own. And then when I put it up on Furnish Finder, it got rented really quickly. So I got really lucky that I got somebody in there until like mid-November, which is fantastic for, having something so immediate. But I really wanted to be able to understand and articulate to my clients, what that feels like on all levels, So house hacking with experience and being able to talk about these things from the experience of somebody that obviously knows it, is living in it, and like really can dive into the inventory to help people is important. But I think a lot of times when people are running their numbers, and sorry, this is just to go back to that previous question you asked to kind of tie these together. When people are running their numbers, so many people are like, oh, well, I couldn't do Airbnb, too much vacancy risk or, too much management or whatever. Like midterm rentals are a wonderful way of working around that because they have to do at least a 3-month minimum, which is great because you don't have to turn these units over. And especially on Furnish Finder, when you can have these really hardworking nurses that, want to be in a nice place, and they're really there to work and have like kind of crazy work hours, like they're ideal tenants and ideal people you'd want to like live in a building with.
We haven't talked about Furnish Finders on here yet. Can you just go a little deeper on what that is?
Oh, Furnish Finders? Yeah, it's so it's a website for midterm rentals, specifically targeted more towards traveling nurses and traveling physicians and people in the medical industry. Usually when they're on projects, they have to be at a place for a minimum of like 90 days up to maybe 6 months. So the person in my first unit right now, she's here until mid-November, but she also knows she has to come back in the spring and we're kind of working out, maybe her coming back and staying with me again in the spring, which I really hope she does. But yeah, so it's great because you don't have to turn the units over. You're not having to send somebody down there to clean. And most of these people like are really self-contained. When she came in, she had, because she's so used to doing this, everything was kind of already in these Tupperware boxes. And she's kind of got her life planned out, like that. So the model I feel like is great if you don't want to have to like turn and burn these units or have the kind of wear and tear in your building that, that stigma that Airbnb has.
What type of premium are you getting for that unit?
Well, for her specifically, what do you mean by premium? Like how much am I actually like making?
Yeah, how much against long-term rent are you getting? Or how much more, maybe on an annual or monthly, however you want to answer that. But
right now, hers is like $1,200 more than my middle unit. So I don't know how.
A year? That's a year or a month?
Month.
Oh, wow.
See the smile? Yeah. So, before I purchased,
if you don't mind me asking, how much did you pay to furnish it, roughly?
Oh man. Okay. So again, like I think I work on the wings of guardian angels. I got a lot of free stuff. I had friends and clients that gave me a bunch of free things. So I had a bunch of free furniture. When I was looking at the numbers roughly a couple weeks ago, and I haven't really finished everything. Like there's still some projects that need to be done. I spent less than $2,000 on painting it, which I did myself, boys. I painted it. I did all of the like updating some of the electrical fixtures. The big thing was the Nest, and the, oh shoot, I'm like losing it right now. I'm blanking on the doors. All of it had to be digital. So
Keypads?
yeah, it had keypads. All of it had to be on one system. So I did all of that myself. So all the projects that were done in the unit, I did myself, which most of it was just DIY stuff, making it look like really Pinterest cute. And if I hadn't had all the furniture, either from Marketplace or, like I said, friends and clients that gave me a bunch of things, then I probably would have spent a little bit more. But don't underestimate the Facebook Marketplace. Sometimes people just want to get rid of things. Like if you know that you want to do this and you know a couple months in advance, you can start stalking Facebook and you can start stalking Craigslist and find a lot of free things. So I'm sure it's probably going to be closer to 2,500 once I start really running the math on everything. But right now it was like around two. I could comfortably say around 2,000.
That's nothing. That's easy.
Yeah, and what's great about
Make that back in 2 to 3 months.
Yeah, no, and I before I purchased, because I was so poor and kind of broke as an artist for such a long time, I had a lot of furniture I also didn't want. So a lot of stuff just got what I call sent downstairs. So like there was a lot of things here where I was like, you know what? Now that I have, my own home, I'm going to eventually buy like a really nice couch. I'm going to eventually buy some of these really nice things. But and I knew last year, before I bought, that like I was holding on to some of these things because I was going to be sending it down the road to, hopefully like my rental unit. So I was scrappy before it even got started, which I think was a huge help, And I know you can be bougie, and I know you can go out there and you can buy a lot of really, really nice things. And I will have to say, I can't make a case for that. My numbers are awesome. And if I could use an F word in there, I would, because I'm really happy with how it all turned out and how it's working out so far.
I got a question, but I'll make a point first. You use the word scrappy. I really like that. I haven't seen anybody that's been self-made that didn't have an element of scrappiness to them.
Yeah.
So if you're listening out there and you're broke and you're contemplating being scrappy, you're already too late. Go be scrappy. Or start by looking out with it.
When I became a realtor, I was in debt. I think I had like enough, like maybe on all my credit cards had been maxed out about $10,000. Luckily, I had a full scholarship to college, and booth obviously was paid for. So I didn't have any student loan debt that I had to worry about. So I came into this with just a lot of like crappy credit card debt. But I think that also instilled in me a lot of like ways of how to do things cheap, how to be poor. And learning how to be poor and learning how to be broke was really important. And I think when you have that kind of mentality and you understand things a little bit differently, and money really is very heavy to you, I think that actually is such a benefit in this. And I say this all the time, especially when I'm talking to clients about, sometimes when you feel like you're being nickeled and dimes on things, or maybe I'm being petty on a deal and really like trying to dig my heels in for clients, I have to remember, and I remind myself constantly, like if my ship sinks, nobody's going to come and save me. So I have to be really prudent with not only my money, but also how I honor and handle my clients' money as well.
Scrappy and creative. I'll add creative to that. So for your clients you're working with that you're promoting house hacking, are you laying out the strategy of midterm or short term and long term? Is it all part of the playbook that you're providing your clients?
Absolutely. Especially if you're within like a 10-minute or maybe even 15-minute walk to a train. I think that having that as an option, especially on the northwest side of the city, makes sense. Where I'm at in West Town, it makes a lot of sense because you've got, the hospitals are, I think, like less than 10 minutes of a drive away. I think she's like 7 minutes to Rush, where she's at, my midterm guest right now. So like to me, it's wonderful. And if you're bougie too, so like my last deal that I did close out like 2 weeks ago was a really nice 4-unit in Lakeview. It's right down the road from the hospital on like what is Wellington and the Brown Lane, right underneath the Brown Lane there. And that was another model we had run across too. So like AirDNA is a really great way to analyze these things, but the vacancy factor on that sometimes is tricky. And it's the same thing with rentals too. So like analyzing rentals and analyzing your Airbnb unit. Sometimes you look at these places and it's like, hey, are we comparing apples to toasters here? Because some of these like units don't really align and can't really compare to each other on either what it is you're offering or the type of space or what it is. So you really have to do a lot of work and get into the weeds on that as an agent. I never, I love Rent-A-Meter. I love, websites like that can help clients on their end do just like kind of a quick analyzing, analysis of what could be there. But the reality is if you really want to make things come to fruition for your clients, you need to be out there finding like really good exact comps for what it is they hope to purchase, even if it is on AirDNA.
Good stuff. All right, so we've mentioned Westtown a few times. How did the individual from Houston here? I know Shay heard Westtown too. He's perked up. But how did someone from Houston say, you know what, this is out of all the neighborhoods in Chicago, this is where I want to anchor? What was that process like, and how did you decide on Westtown for your house?
I actually just lived down the road. So before I moved here, I was on the same street, just 7 minutes away. So I was really familiar with like the location. My best friend and like my soulmate and family lives on East Humboldt Park. So they're really close. And then obviously with my job, it was really important to me to be close to a highway so that if I needed to jet to the North Shore, I could. If I had to go south, I could. So the location of Westtown for me and my work life, personal balance, all of those things was just like a no-brainer. But I had also looked in Jefferson Park. I was under contract in Portage Park. I had been under contract 2 other times.
Could have been neighbors.
Yeah, could have been neighbors. Yeah. Great locations. Like and if I would have gotten those deals, I would have been very happy in those areas too. But I'm really glad that they didn't work out and things fell apart the way they did, even though, I tell you, sometimes you talk to clients, especially when they've just had, one that gets canceled or it doesn't work out for whatever reason. It's crushing. It feels like a breakup, especially when you find something that you really like and you're finally under contract or whatever. But like, as a realtor that does this all day, every day, I also was under contract 2 times before I actually purchased this place. So I think it says a lot. You have to have a lot of tenacity to walk away from a deal and to know when it's not for you. And then on one of them, the rug just kind of got pulled out from underneath me. Just to be honest, they basically rented out the unit that I was supposed to own or occupy, and then I couldn't get financing. And that was crushing. Because one, stupidity, because it's very clearly on the contract that I needed it to own or occupy it. So they did it, and that was just dumb. But also it just felt like I was getting further and further away from what I wanted.
What's your outlook on Westtown? Like, where do you see over the next 10 years?
I got really lucky.
Can we define it real quick for our listeners? Because it's a pretty big area. Real quick.
I get this question a lot about.
Because it covers Humboldt, it covers Noble Square, it covers Ukrainian Village. There's a lot there.
So technically, I'm in East Village, but if I say that to people, they don't really understand it. So I think it's easier to say Westtown because then at least people who maybe are like more of the north side just kind of get it. But I'm in East Village, so technically like the Chicago and Ashland intersection is going to be like the closest big intersection to where I'm at. So that's kind of more my hood, East Village.
How does that sorry, Mark, I'm overstepping your question here, but can you compare that to call it the west end of Westtown, like the East Humboldt Park? Like how does the entire neighborhood just compared to someone who has no idea what Westtown is, because it encompasses a lot?
Yeah. So I think Grand is going to be your cutoff of what a lot of people kind of incorporate like the West Town area into. Grand coming up to like where the park kind of meets. It sort of corners there over where the rock climbing first ascent is in East Humboldt Park. So that location kind of further to the highway is, obviously a couple of different neighborhoods. I know that it's hard for people because I would say it's all kind of comparable to each other because everything that's there would make really wonderful rentals. Obviously, I live like halfway in the middle of both of those worlds. And for Furnish Finder or Airbnb, you're still really close to a lot of wonderful things. But when you get closer to Humboldt Park, a lot of times people see, especially East Humboldt Park, which is still a part of Westtown, if you do the mile radius for your rentals, you're going to pick up a lot of things that are on the west side. And as people know, West Humboldt Park and East Humboldt Park really are 2 different locations, especially when it comes to not only property value, but what you can get for your rental value as well. But I'd say, like, especially if you're on the east side, you can just kind of draw your map and keep it closer to this area if you really wanted to define the value and to define what it is you see in the locations. But I'll be honest, like, all of this is so specific too. Like, I lived in Lincoln Park right across from the zoo for a really long time, and I wasn't on the best block either. So, when you're looking at these things, even though I can make these generalizations of, a neighborhood or a location, you really have to drive it. It is street by street specific, even where I'm at.
Awesome. Great answer. All right. So I hijacked that whole thing. Back to Mark's original question, though. The outlook. What do you see West Town over the next 5 years, 10 years, et cetera?
I think it's just getting better and better. And I am really lucky I got the deal that I did. The property had been mismarketed and it had been, I think, basically priced as after repair value of what it was versus, what I got it for. I'm incredibly proud of the deal that I had here on my property, but I don't think that even in the last 6 months, I've seen things like that. And inventory has, just across the city frozen up a lot. Since everybody did the refinancing and during COVID times. But yeah, I just see it getting better and better. The appreciation is getting better and better. My street alone, we've had there's 3 new developments that are going on here. One's a single family home. One's a really nice 4-unit that's being flipped on the corner. So there's a lot that I'm sandwiched in between that I think is just going to help my after repair value of my property. And just in a general sense of what it is I'm seeing on the commercial side of things, Chicago Avenue, oh my goodness, there's just a lot of new fun places up there that have, man, it's going to be great for tourism. Not only Beauty Bar and everything from there all the way over to where the Mariano's is. They're putting more stuff. So I just see just an upward trajectory over here.
Shay's going to be happy we asked that question, but he's still going to be disappointed there's no Chipotle. That's his number one gripe with town.
Really? No Chipotle? Well, I'm a Texan, so I don't think I've ever, I think it's been years since I had Chipotle.
Yeah, I eat it all day, 4 times a week already.
And it's Monday.
All right. Before we wrap, anything else around house hacking and what's going on right now with inventory? Any other add value out there for our listeners that you want to share?
I would say that don't get discouraged. First of all, hot girl summer is still here. So we're not seeing a lot of inventory that, we usually see even in summer, but this summer is definitely lower than what it was, but that's how summers usually are. We will probably have some type of a bump after the holiday up until a little bit at the end of the year, but don't get discouraged. If you're not spending money, you're saving money, or at least you should be. So if people who are out there that just want to get started, don't just slow and steady wins the race. Keep educating yourself, seeing properties. All of this will help. I've had clients where it's taken them 2 years to buy a property and then they bought 3 in 18 months right after that. So if you do the first one right, the second one comes fast. But if you're hell-bent on jumping in, sometimes that can help, that can really aid to crash and burning. So, you want to be smart about these things, but don't get discouraged at what you see.
We see very few people do the first one successful that don't go on to do 2 and 3. So that's definitely true. All right. You ready to wrap? Tom, you ready?
Let's do it.
All right. So what is your competitive advantage? How have you been able to do this while so many others wish they could?
You guys, I'm dyslexic. I think it is my spidey sense, and I think it is my secret weapon. I am, because of the 3D kind of imagery I have in my head, it helps with not only what I see visually in properties. If somebody needs me to change a wall to green, I can see it in my head right away. I can move cabinets around, but it also helps with the numbers too of how to analyze properties, but then how do you see that in the strategy in real time play out in your head, because I'm so visual. So I think that is really a competitive advantage. But I know that sounds kind of, it's always hard when you talk about being, dyslexic. People will ask you well, can you read? And it's of course I can read. I have a master's degree and I went to Booth. But, I think it's one of those things that like more people should be talking about, because there is a lot of strength in that I don't think I would have had if I had not, been dyslexic.
Oh, it's huge. Those little things, especially in our industry. Like I can remember floor plans like from a decade ago now, like just from like being able to, because I remember walking through the space, like, so.
Absolutely. Yeah, I definitely think it's my greatest strength.
Awesome.
All right. What is one piece of advice you would tell someone that is yet to buy their first property here in Chicago?
Go slow and steady. Slow and steady wins the race. Do the first one right so that the next one comes along pretty quickly. I know I just said all of this, but I think that is the best advice I can give everybody. It took me years to buy, but also on top of that, like, you have to understand your lifestyle needs to also fit the type of property that you hope to either live in or manage.
All right. What do you do for fun?
I love rock climbing and hiking. I'm hoping to do that Half Dome Summit in November with the cables down. So that'll be really interesting, weather permitted, but hiking is everything. It's a really great mental component to whatever, I'm trying to let go of, but also the physical side of things is very helpful as well for stress release and, everything we deal with on a daily basis as realtors.
Man, all right. So do you go to First Ascent over there, like Humboldt or California and Grand or whatever?
Yeah, I'm bully certified. So hit me up if anybody wants to go there. Or the one in Avondale is better because they've got the ropes. But I also like Brooklyn Boulders, but I'm pretty partial to First Ascent in Avondale.
All right. Alejandro, make sure to link to those in the show notes. All right. So give us a good book, podcast, or self-development activity that you'd recommend to our listeners.
Okay, so I'm a really big fan of just like Googling motivational speeches on YouTube. I really like the ones that are very like, I'm laughing because some of these I think are to help kids stay off the streets and stay out of gangs because they're very aggressive with what they, are like partaking. And I don't know how you're going to link this. So maybe I just send you one of my favorite links and maybe you do this. But
we're just going to link to Google. Okay, you got to send one. The onus is on you. You need to send one to us.
Yeah, we got to link to your YouTube history.
Oh my God. But yeah, I would say that's actually, that's like the first thing that always comes to my head. But I love Eckhart Tolle when it comes to personal development books. The Power of Now changed my life completely. I've read that book like 4 or 5 times. Sometimes when I'm even struggling, that's also just, I will like pick it up and just like start reading it. I think it's really important to be present, not only in like what we do on a daily basis, but like it's hard sometimes to not take this job with you to the next person. So being able to kind of like compartmentalize some of this stuff and really being at peace, that book has helped me tremendously.
Yeah, I love Eckhart Tolle. I actually use him when I can't sleep because his voice is so soothing. It puts me to sleep.
He was on my Instagram earlier, and I was like, oh, no, not. It's like mid-afternoon, you hear him, and like you can like drift back.
Yeah. All right. Besides yourself, name one person in your local network you'd highly recommend it to other investors as a quality resource.
I mean, I'm sorry, but I have to say, y'all, this podcast.
Just that Southern. That's the first time we saw the Southern job. Y'all.
Yeah, I actually didn't used to say y'all, but now that it has become such an inclusive term, I used to say you guys all the time. And then once I realized that it sounded way more youthful than it needed to, but it just wasn't as inclusive as y'all. So over the last like 2 years, I really started saying it a lot. But I would have to say y'all, your podcast has been not only beneficial to my success as an agent, but I think for a lot of people who are out there that are looking to invest in different components and different elements of, whether it is syndication or they want to hear about commercial investing, or even like meetups, all of these things, you guys have been a really wonderful resource for, debunking a lot of the Chicago market and also creating a lot of transparency. And that for my job has been so beneficial. And again, this was such a huge honor to be here, but I'm really grateful for all of the things that you guys do because it helps make my job so much easier.
We usually don't take ourselves as an answer, but I'll take that today because it's
Sorry.
We're debunking myths, man. I like it.
I'll take it. I'm going to accept it.
New straight up shirt just says debunker.
Yeah.
Flag. So, Sarita, thank you. This has been awesome. You provide a ton of value to our listeners. How can they learn more about you? Is there any way they can provide value to you?
Well, we host a monthly meetup. So the second Tuesday of every month, we have a monthly meetup at the Pony Inn. Usually it's centered around, first-time investors getting started, but we've also done a lot about, growth and growth strategy as well. Our next one's going to be really interesting because we've got somebody who bought their first property purchase was a 38 unit, and now they just bought their first house hack. So it's kind of a very dynamic story Jordan has. And then October, we've got an eviction specialist coming in. Ezekiel McDonald-Lewis from the Irwin Law Group is going to be speaking. And then Mike Pacini, who was just on your podcast a couple weeks ago, is going to be talking in our November session. So we've got a really exciting fall coming up for our meetups. That's one way. And then our Instagram handle is Sarita Sells Chicago. We've got a great community of people that are on there. And I try to update my Instagram story as much as possible, which is a lot of seeing properties because I usually in a week see about 20 to 30 multi-units. So we try to post a lot of the journey of what it is, I see on a daily basis for myself and also my colleague Megan, who's on my team.
That's great stuff. You mentioned Mike Pacini, episode 238, and we want to give him a shout out. He was the one who introduced us. So Mike, thank you for creating the opportunity here.
On this place, he was my lender. He's my go-to.
So, all right, good stuff. Mark, we got a Chicago fact to put a bow on this thing.
All right, Sarita, we're going to play today for Camila Downs, who bought a pair of sweatpants, so we're part of her weekends. So
we have sweatpants, eh?
Yeah, Camila. So if me or Sarita get this Chicago fact right, you'll get a $50 gift card brought to you by today's sponsor, Perry Farella from First Community Mortgage.
All right, it's good stuff. So we mentioned our guest today had ties to Second City. So, Mark, here's the question. Second City has had just a ton of talent go through it. All these people I'm about to name, all four I should say, all of them have been members of Second City except, so you gotta call out who has not been part of Second City. And the choices are, and Sarita, you get a shot at two after Mark. Bill Murray, Amy Poehler, Tim Meadows, John Mulaney. Which one of these has not been a member of Second City?
I will say Tim.
Okay, Sarita, where do you want to go with?
Well, I know the answer is John Mulaney, but I think that's actually a trick question.
No, you just shut up. You're good. What's the trick question? What did I miss?
I'm pretty sure he took classes there. He may never have been on the main stage, but...
that doesn't count. We're talking classes. We're talking practice.
Well, but I'm pretty sure. So I did improv with his sister Claire at IO and Second City for a really long time. But I'm pretty sure he did do some performing there, but he wasn't on the main stage like the rest of them were. So.
The internet does not confirm with you. I have not found anything that Mulaney's been related there. So
I could have sworn Mulaney had ties to Chicago, and that's why I went with him. But
oh yeah, St. Ignatius grad. He's definitely has ties to Chicago. That's where I was trying to trick you.
Yeah. All right. Well, listen. Either way, Sarita got it right, and that means, Camila, you now have straight up Chicago investor sweatpants and a $50 gift card brought to you by Perry Farella from First Community Mortgage. So
awesome.
It was awesome. Tom, thank you. Sarita, thank you for coming on here. Listeners, we talked about house hacking today. Go to straightupchicagoinvestor.com, check out our house hacking calculator, and also go to our networking meetup. So you can hear, we have all the information for Sarita's monthly meetup on there that you could, what she talked about here, the links, the schedule, all that stuff's on there. So check out our house hacking calculator and meetup. So Tom, or Sarita, thank you for coming on here. Love to have you on here. It was awesome. I'm going to hopefully come check out your meetup here in the next couple months. Tom, thank you as always. Listeners, we will see you next week.
Thanks all.
Thank you.